All right, take three. Let's try this again. So, among other reasons I want to start doing these videos, other than to make it a little bit easier for me to get up content that wasn't too long, was so that I could reintroduce some of my older content to people that realistically now probably hadn't hit puberty when I first did this, right? I started writing a lot in 2007 on my website. So here's a piece from 2009 called How to Be Your Own Coach. And what spurred it at the time was I'd gone to a seminar by Dan John, who is fantastic. Someone in the audience asked him, how do you coach yourself? And Dan, I love Dan. He's one of the greatest people. I love whenever he comes to Austin, but frequently his answers are undirected. And I don't think he'd disagree with me there. And similar, at the same time, I got like a question on my old support forum. And yes, they're down, and yes, they may come back, and it's a server issue, so chill. Not like they were active particularly anyway. So I wrote that piece, and I want to sort of redress it. This also gives me the opportunity to kind of update anything, rewrite / edit, and also to reformat because the Google search algorithms have changed. So my stuff needs. So anyway, how to be your own coach. It's very difficult, and for most people, I'd say you can't. And I'm going to explain why and try to give some potential solutions if you're determined to try. So we might ask, like, what is the purpose of a coach to begin with? And there's a number. One of them is technique, right? And sports vary in how technically demanding they are. Running, most people's technique is awful, but you can kind of do it. You don't hear about people trying to learn how to pole vault or high jump or swim by themselves because those are extremely technical activities. And if you don't have a coach, odds are you're not going to learn them well, if at all, right? Now, when I wrote this, my main focus seems to be on the weight room, and I'm kind of going to focus on that. So we might look at technique in the weight room. Well, when I was younger and got into this, right, I was very obsessive and very hungry for knowledge, and I studied technique, and I still do, and I'm obsessive compulsive about it, and I think it's paramount over blah, 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 blah. And it always kind of bothered me that even then, and certainly by the late 2000s, that what I saw in the weight room was that more people did it wrong than right, which I think is reversed. At the time, probably, if I saw a properly done squat, that was a rarity. Like I could at one point count them on like two hands, and half of those are people I'd coached. They're terrible. Deadlifts, it doesn't matter. Everybody does every movement wrong. At the time, it was more men in the weight room, but as women have entered, like they get the same poor advice. And men, I think, are a different issue, right? Men assume that if they have a penis, that they know everything about two things, which are cars and sports is inclusive of the weight room. They intrinsically know how to do weight room stuff properly, and it's usually the opposite is true. That's a little bit different now, 2019, as I'm recording this. I'm seeing proportionally better technique in the weight room. It's still not the majority. But I think with the advent of a lot of good social media and instructional videos and other people putting out technique stuff, people are doing, but now instead of being like 95% bad, 5% good, it's like 90-10 or 85-15 if I'm being optimistic. Yeah, I know if you train at a powerlifting gym, what you know what I mean. Go to your average Gold's or World Gym and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Even if you're the exception or you work at a gym that's the exception. So part of having a coach is to learn proper technique. This presumes they know what it is. That's a separate issue. Another purpose might be motivation, although I think for high-level athletes in general, motivation isn't the issue. If anything, most performance high-level athletes are too driven. They want to do too much, too often, too hard. If anything, coaches, you end up having to hold them back a little bit. And Charlie Francis used to talk about that. He spent more time holding his sprinters back. I don't think, I just want to make this diversion, for the general personal trainer, general personal training client, I think it's the opposite. I think motivation is a much bigger key. The majority of people in that situation don't know how to push hard. And again, I know there's exceptions. I'm not talking universals. I'm not talking all elite athletes are great, and I'm not on average. There are lots of elite athletes who got by on talent when they were younger and have no work ethic, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about statistical averages. So motivation, control might be another one. The third one, of course, is to control the training process, right? Volumes, intensities, frequencies, progressions, variations, right? Since presumably they know what they're doing to get you to your goals. So those are the three primary goals. So can you do this yourself as a coach? Well, technique is very difficult to do, right? Motivation, to a degree, I think you either have it or you don't. I'm not saying universally. But But the training process is as much of an issue, and it's very difficult to do that for yourself. Now, there are exceptions, usually very highly experienced athletes who've kind of learned what does and doesn't work for them, but they tend to be the exception. And now I want to tell you why I think that is. The most general sense, or actually the reason is, I'd say proximity, objectivity, and rationalization, right? You're too close to it. You're too close to you. And you cannot be objective about yourself by and large. Not in the way you can be objective about somebody else. And as I like to joke, humans are, what separates man from the animals is our ability to rationalize. We can always think we're making an objective decision about our own training when all we're doing is rationalizing what we want to do rather than what we should do. And that's because we're too close to it. Right? Physicians, by and large, cannot treat themselves, or even their family members, because they're too close. They can't be objective. Things they would do for a patient, they will not do for themselves, to themselves, or a family member, by and large. Right? Because there's that emotional connection. And I'm not saying doctors don't have a connection or care about their patient's well-being. I'm saying that it's different. A family member is different than a patient. It's like the old joke. A man who represents himself in court has a fool for a lawyer. Probably a little bit different reason, but same thing. You can't be objective about your own situation. You can justify any of your own actions in a way you wouldn't justify others. You'll even see this with people in bad relationships. They will happily tell others to get out of a relationship that is maybe not even as bad as what they're in, because they'll justify why theirs is okay. You can be objective about someone else. So that's really the issue. And that's very hard to get around because of the nature of the human mind. And I'm not saying I'm any better at it, right? Maybe as I've gotten older, but still by and large, one of the worst, probably the mentally major injury I've had other than breaking my leg, which was nothing to do with me, was I was deadlifting in my 20s and I had 2 sets of 5 on my workout card and I was going to get those reps and I felt my form breaking on the second set and I kept going and I popped a ligament. Lost 9 months of training. It still bothers me now. But I never would have let someone I was training do that. I would have stopped them. I had to get the reps because I'm different and I'm special. Now I'm just stupid. And most people are too. Did the same thing with dieting in my late 20s. I would always be fooling with stuff and change things every 3 days and never stick with anything long enough for it to matter because I was experimenting. I was whatever. And the best fat loss results I ever got was to have people on the old Misfitness weights group just ask me, are you sticking with the plan? Because it gave me accountability and I did and it worked because I couldn't be my own worst enemy. So that's the problem. Are there solutions? Is it possible to coach yourself knowing all this? And tentatively I will say yes, but you have to do one of two things. The first one is you're in the gym. You're getting ready to do that next set. You're questioning doing that, thinking about it. You'll always justify because you want to do it, right? Same reason when I coach people, I never ask them, do you want to do another set? They always want to do another set. Should you do another set? Because it's a very different question. I know what they want to do. The question is, should they do? When you're doing it by yourself, and you've got that doubt, step back and ask yourself, okay, if I were coaching someone, if I were advising someone else, what would I tell them to do? Because if what you would tell someone else to do is not the same as what you want to do, you have to come up with a very good reason why it's okay for you to do something different. And I don't mean because I want to. If you cannot come up with a good, solid, objective reason, then don't do it. Because if you wouldn't have someone else do it, you shouldn't do it either. Because you're not special. So that was my solution. It only took me over a decade to figure that out. And I sometimes even still apply it. When I'm in the weight room now, there's always part of me like, do more work, add more weight, do this, do that. And I'm like, nope, you're 49 years old. Just do what you need to do. And men, I don't think ever quite get over it because we're just macho idiots. So that's solution number one. Solution number two comes from my own coach, right? When I was in Salt Lake City from 2005 to 2010, pursuing ice speed skating, horribly technical sport, brutal, like nothing I've ever done. I've written about it on the website from time to time. My coach was a technical master. It's also just physiologically insane. And he'd been coaching for 27 years. He'd broken himself as an athlete, training 3 times a day, 7 days a week with no breaks till he finally blew himself up. He broke his first handful of athletes. At this point, he knew what he was doing. And when I hired him, I listened to him. And that's the topic of another video I've got coming up. He had a different approach. He had a different approach to this, which was if you ask the question, you already have the answer. So if we were on the ice and we were doing starts, for example, and if you ever ask the question, should I do another one? The answer is no. That's it. Because if you're questioning it on any level, deep down you know you shouldn't. And that's pretty good advice. And part of that has to do with the fact that realize that assuming you've done a certain amount of work, you're getting a training effect, right? Let's say you've done 6 high-speed sprint starts, and you can mess yourself up if you miss a blade or lose your blade because you're tired. You've gotten a training effect. But if you do the 7th one, you get hurt, you've just lost months, right? Charlie Francis, again, used to talk about it's better to undertrain slightly than overtrain slightly, because working at 90% of your maximum will still get you there, and working 110% will eventually break you. My coach also had another very good idea, which was this. He goes, write down your perfect training program. Now cut it in half, and that's probably a good workload. And that's really good advice. So that was his solution. If you have any doubt about doing the extra work, don't do it. You can always do it the next workout, the next day, the next week. This isn't a race. Because trust me, if you get hurt doing it, you lose a lot more time than any benefit you gain. That's pretty much it. It's tough to coach yourself because you can't be objective. You justify doing things you wouldn't do with anybody else. One solution, take a step back and go, what would I tell someone else to do? And if what you want to do is different than that, you need to determine why. And because I'm a macho idiot who wants to do that extra 2 reps of deadlifts, that's not a good reason. Finally, my coach's approach is probably the best. If you ever ask the question, should I do this? The answer is no, and you should stop. And if you're going to have any chance of coaching yourself, that's how you should do it.